Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Liz Loves Books. As you can see, I am filming the same exact spot as another video, and I'm dog sitting, and I have so much time on my hands that I'm like, I need to film as many videos as I can to get a backlog. So today I am going to be talking about, with my handy dandy laptop, all of the books that I have read so far this year and my top 3 favorite books. I was going to do top 5, and then I looked at my 5 stars, and I don't have that many. I literally have 6, and one of them's a manga, and I kind of count this on a different rating system, so technically I only have 5 stars, and I was like, oh, well, I could rank them, but then I was like, well, that's kind of a spoiler for, like, end of year content. Look at me, sounding like a booktuber. So I'm going to do a top 3 of my favorite books of this year so far. But I'm just going to go through and list the book that I read, the rating, the author, and if I can, like a 1-sentence blurb. We're going to see how it goes. So in January, I started off the year with Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. I gave this book a 4-star. This was from a continuation of me starting the Mortal Instruments series in 2024, and I was just reading it in, publication order at first, but then I saw that you need to kind of skip around, and that was on Cassandra Clare's site, so that's what I did. Can't describe this book because it's like the 4th book in like interconnected series. Then I read The Half King by Melissa Landers. This is a newer release romantasy. I did not like this book. I gave it a 2.5 stars. I don't recommend. Then I read Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, and this was just Taylor Swift's overarching Eras Tour book. I didn't rate this. I usually don't rate nonfiction, especially because this one was a lot more pictures, and it was just a fun, good time. Then I read The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I gave it 4 stars. This was a reread, and it's a companion, obviously, to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Then I read An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I gave this a 4.5 stars. It's the first book in the Ember in the Ashes quartet. The YA fantasy with a romance subplot. But honestly, the romance subplot hits. It's really, really good. And there's only like crumbs of it, obviously, in the first book, but I really look forward to reading it, and I recommend it to everybody. Then I read Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Seanan McGuire. I gave this book 4 stars. This is like book 10, I think, in a novella series by Seanan McGuire. That is like a portal fantasy YA series where it follows different characters that get to travel through these different doors into these lands. Then I read The Perfect Son by Freida McFadden. I gave this book a 3-star read. I felt like this one was a little bit predictable, and it was a little bit obvious with the big twist at the ending. Although I do recommend, if you want a short, quick, fast thriller, Freida McFadden's always good. I always listen to them on audio from my library because I usually don't like to buy thriller books. And you'll see 2 more Fridas right after this because I just like binged 3 of them all at once. Then I listened to Ward D by Freida McFadden. I gave that a 3.5 star. I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I did guess the twist, but it took me a bit, so this one got a little bit higher rating than The Perfect Son. Then I listened to The Crash, which was her newest release this year. She does have another one out now, and I gave that one a 3.5. The main character really irritated me. She just made really dumb decisions, and I feel like some decisions that weren't obvious, as well as our 2 other characters, or other male and female characters. They also just made dumb decisions, and I was like, what are you doing? Stop. Please don't. Moving on to February, I read Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I read this on my Kindle, and then I liked it enough to be like, I'm going to buy the whole series, and I haven't continued. But I gave this book 4 stars, YA interconnected standalone series. I didn't realize how much YA I've read this year so far. It's kind of crazy. Then I read Blood Over Bright Haven by Emma Wong. I gave this book 5 stars. An amazing standalone fantasy that deals with a lot of discussions on like gender issues, social issues. Pretty much like any issue that's prevalent today was in this standalone fantasy, and it just like hits you and hits you and hits you and hits you over and over and over again. Then I reread Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I gave it 4 stars again upon reread, but this time I listened to the graphic audio because I was recommended it. I did hate that it was a part 1 and part 2, and I had to use 2 Everend credits for it. So that was really annoying. Again, I listened to this to try to continue in the series. Have I? No. Then I read Lightfall, The Girl and the Galdurian by Tim Prober. This is a graphic novel series, and it's the first in the series, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I listened to This Blood That Binds Us by S.I. Coakley. I gave this book 3 stars. It was the first book in like a urban vampire romantic story. I do think I might continue it just because like I follow the author on Instagram and she's very interesting. I just felt like it was a little jumbled in its delivery. And then I read The Traitor Queen by Danielle L. Jensen. I gave this a 4.5 stars. This is book 2. Really loved this duology. I read The Bridge Kingdom earlier in 2024 and the new covers are beautiful. Highly recommend. And then I listened to Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. I gave this a 3 stars. It is a standalone, this I would say is a new adult fantasy. And I thought the concepts were really cool with like floral magic, but I just thought that the execution again was a little jumbled. And then I went to another nonfiction, but it was another Taylor Swift book. It was called Taylor Swift: A New Era by Katie Sprinkle. Again, I didn't rate this one, but just another fun little book about Taylor Swift and her music and her career. Read Bonded by Thorns by Elizabeth Helen, and I gave this book a 4 star, although it's funny thinking about it now because I have Fairyloot special editions of them, I have keychains, I have art prints, and I'm like, but I have yet to give a book 5 stars in the series, and I've read 3. So, I mean, I feel like it could maybe get bumped up to 4.5, but I'm not sure. Is an adult Why Choose fantasy romance that is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I think the reason I gave the book 4 stars because it was like heavy Beauty and the Beast retelling in the beginning, like almost like word for word. So I think that might have been what knocked it down. Then we move on to March. I read Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This was the first book in her interconnected adult romance series called Gold Rush Ranch. It was her debut series. I gave it 4 stars. I have read all the Chestnut Springs books, and so I think that's tainted it a little bit. I liked Billy and Vaughn as characters, but there was something about their romance that didn't quite mesh for me. Then I immediately read Woven by Gold by Elizabeth Helen, book 2 in the Beasts of the Broader series, and I gave that a 4.5, so I bumped it up. And great, please read the series. Then I read book 2 in the Lightfall series, The Shadow of the Bird by Tim Prober, and I gave that a 3.5 star continuation in the graphic novel series that I read earlier. And then I read Cat and Gamer Volume 2 by Wataru Nadatani, and this is a manga. I put it in as young adult. It didn't really have a, delineation. I gave it a 3 star, but mind you, my manga ratings are very different than my normal book ratings. A 3 star for a manga is like, it was cute, having a fun time, I loved it, and it's just about this 20-something-year-old girl who adopts a cat and she's a gamer and they live their life. Then I read Shamrock Kisses by Serena Peer. This was an adult romance novella. I read it because it was around St. Patrick's Day and it was spicy, but it was so cringy. And it took place where I live, near where I live. I live near Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And I gave it a 2 star. It was not good. It was honestly really bad. But if you want some spice, I guess read it. It was not good. Then I read The Answer Is No by Frederick Bachman. This is a short story novella by him. And it was my first Frederick Bachman, and I feel like that might have been a misstep on my part, because I only give it a 3.5 star. And I just heard all the other books, everyone's like, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. And I'm like, this was fine. Yep. Then I read Upon Me for Two by Trinity Nugent. She was a debut YA romance author. I gave this book a 3 stars. I thought it was really cute. I actually thought the writing was really, really good, but it was just your typical YA romance. Then I read Wild Side by Elsie Silver. That is book 3 in her newest series, Rose Hill. I gave it a 4.5, although I feel like I thought I gave it a 4, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. I liked this one. It was a little bit different for Elsie because it had to do with, a lot more difficult topics than she's broached into before. So I did appreciate that for her. So I think that was really great. There was just something that couldn't give it a 5 stars. And I still haven't been able to pinpoint what that is. Then I read Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Volume 1 by Kanehito Yamada. That was another manga series. I label it as young adult, but again, they don't really have super big labels. And that was a 4-star fantasy manga that is just really fun, and the art is beautiful. Then I read Forged by Malice by Elizabeth Helen. It's book 3 in the Beast of the Briar series, and I give it a 4.5. See, this is why I'm like, the books individually aren't 5 stars, but the series as a whole is 5 stars. Especially because I've read 3 that quickly, 1 month after the other. Like, that's kind of unheard of for me. I listened to The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and I gave that, it was funny, I originally gave it a 5 star. And then like months later, I was like, no, it's a 4.5. So it's a 4.5 officially now. Everyone kind of knows this book. It's a magical realism romance book. I thought the writing was really, really good. And then I read Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I gave it 4 stars. Although now kind of thinking about it, I was like a little generous. I think it was probably more of 3.5 for me. I liked Delilah as a character, but I really hated the other FMC, Claire. She just annoyed me so much. I just wanted to come in there and tell her to shut up. It sounds really bad. But yeah, I didn't get the hype. I listened to Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto, and this was my first book by Julie Soto. I gave it 5 stars. It had a lot of music involved with it, so I think that helped. And the spice scenes were just perfection. Please read Julie Soto. Her books are amazing. I read Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, and this is a YA horror, and I gave it 5 stars. Botanical rot is how the author describes it. It has a lot of like gay, bi, panic in it. It's so good. And then I listened to The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. This was a nonfiction. Again, I didn't give it a rating, but overall it's 5 stars. It's really dark and really, really sad, but I think a really important read. And then I read Wild and Wrangled by Lila Sage. This was the 4th book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and it finished off the series for me. I ended up giving Wild and Wrangled 5 stars. It was my first 5 stars of the series, and I was so happy because I was a little disappointed by Lost and Laslo, the 3rd book. And this was a second chance contemporary romance. I don't like second chance, and I loved this book. And then I listened to What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This is a YA duology fantasy with a romance subplot series. I ended up giving this a 3.5. I really liked the writing and like the setting where it was set in Egypt with like the pyramids, and like it was also historical, so it was like late 1800s. It was really good. And then I listened to Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins, and this is a adult thriller, and I remember not liking it, and I give it a 2.5. So this one I just don't recommend. Then I listened to Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. This is that, I think it's an Audible exclusive of Ali's. I gave it a 4 star. I really, really enjoyed it. I wanted it to be longer. And then I read Cat and Gamer Volume 3 by Wataru Nadatani, just a continuation in that cute manga series. And I believe I gave that one probably a 4 star. Then I listened to I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is her YA romance mystery book. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to. I gave it a 4 star. I think it was a really solid YA mystery romance. And also, of course, has LGBTQ plus, discussions because it's Casey McQuiston. And then I listened to Where the Library Hides by Isabel Ibanez. That was book 2 in the Rivers of the Nile duology. And I was really disappointed with this one. I gave it a 3-star. I just thought that our characters changed immensely and she wasn't anything like she was in the first book. And I thought the plot was really rushed and I thought there was too many different unusual plot twists trying to happen all at once and it was just not great. Then I listened to and read at the same time, so tandem read The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar. I ended up giving this a 3-star. I was so sad. I thought it was going to be like a new favorite because it had like music in the audiobook and there was illustrations in the physical book and there was like singing in it. And so I thought it was a really cool concept. I just felt like the magic system itself was really hard to understand and I was like, what's the point? So that was sad to be disappointed by. Then I read The Favorites by Lane Fargo. It was my first book by Lane Fargo and I gave it a 4.5. Contemporary ice skating toxicity. It was really great. As you can tell, my mouth is tired and I can't talk anymore. And I don't know how to form a sentence. Anyway, then I read an E-arc of Hazelthorn by C.G. Drews. That was C.G. Drews' second novel that's coming out this fall. I gave it a 4-star. I didn't like it as much as Don't Let the Forest In, but I thought it was still excellently written. Really great, again, that botanical rat horror, that was the same in this one, but it was, instead of the boys being set at a school, this was set at a, decrepit mansion. And I listened to The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Such an interesting writing style Maggie has. I can't even really describe it. All I can say is try it out and see if you like it. It's different, though. Then I read Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. This was on request from a coworker that I had. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I think it's just because I'm not in the place of my life that I can really connect to it. It's about a mother pretty much doing everything on her own, even though she has a husband and her kid, and just all the mental anguish that goes through being a mother, having a child, pregnancy. But then there's also a horror element to it. So that's all I'm going to say. Then I read Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I gave it a 4-star. It is a adult new fantasy romance. Well, I thought it was a duology, but it's a trilogy. There's a 3rd one coming out. And I really enjoyed it. It was a cute, fun time. Then I read Warriors Into the Wild by Erin Hunter. This was my nostalgia read, an old elementary, middle grade series from when I was a kid. Cats running around in the forest, having their own clans, talking. It's great. Then I read What Moves the Dead by Kate T. Kingfisher. I gave this a 3 stars. It's the Sworn Soldier novella series. I don't know anything about the House of Usher, and that's what it's based off of, so I think I just went into it not knowing anything, and I was confused the entire time and didn't know what was going on. Gave it a 3 because the writing was good. And then I read Heavenly Bodies by Imani Ariu. I ended up giving that a 4 stars. It's book 1 in the Fallen Stars series, a new adult fantasy romance. It did take me a bit in the beginning to get into it, but then halfway through, it turned around. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And the twist was crazy. I did not guess it, so that was really cool. Then I listened to Bitter Blue by Kristen Cashore. This is book 3 in her big overarching series that she's got. I listened to the first 2 in 2024. It's a continuation, so I can't say too much about it, but I gave it a 4 star. Usually all of Kristen Cashore's audiobooks I listen to are 4 stars. Then I read The Unsettled by Ayanna Mathis. This was an unusual book for me because it was kind of like a historical, just fiction novel. I ended up giving it a 3 star. I thought the writing was really good, and I was really hooked in the beginning, but then the ending just kind of lost me. Then I reread Godkiller by Hannah Kaner, and I gave it 4 stars again, and this was just so I could continue on in the series and read Sunbringer and Faithbreaker because it just came out. It has a lot of really good representation. It has an amputee character, it has a deaf side character, it follows 4 different POVs, but they all intermingle really well, and it's all written very well in such a short amount of time. And then a nonfiction, I read Taylor Swift by the Book. It was another nonfiction about Taylor Swift's writing. And then I read Prince of the Arena by Elizabeth Helen, which is an indie novella that they published for 2 characters from the series, Beast of the Briar series. I'm not going to say who they are because it would ruin it, but it was really cute, spicy, gave it 4 stars. Then I read the graphic novel The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. I gave it a 3.5. It was basically about a boy and him and his family and his extended family. They're all magical people, and the girls grow up to be witches, and the boys grow up to almost be like these shape-shifting animals. But our main character, he wants to be a witch, and it talks a lot about like gender roles and how boys can do this, what girls can do what boys can do. Really good YA message in there. Then I listened to Winterkeep by Christian Cashore. That was book 4 in her Interconnected series. I was disappointed in this one. I gave it 3 stars. I've heard it's not everyone's favorite. I feel like it was just kind of randomly distant from everything else, even though there were still some the same characters from the other series. But it followed another main like teen character, and she was weirdly obsessed with like having sex with people, and it was really strange. And yeah, I didn't like it very much. Then I reread The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins because I'm in Sunrise on the Readathon right now in July, and so that's why I wanted to reread it. You know, what did I rate it? I gave it a 4 star. I remember it being really, really great. I just felt like there was parts that were just like could have been a little bit more descriptive for me. And then I listened to Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. And I was kind of disappointed in this one. I gave it a 3 star. The main character just annoyed me so much. And if the main character annoys me, it's never really going to get more than a 3. The writing was really good, and I'm listening to that series so that I can get to the spin-off adult spicy series. And then I read Crash Test by Amy James. This was an LGBTQ plus contemporary romance about an F1 and F2 racing. But also Second Chance. I also loved it. I gave it a 4.5 star. So I don't know what's going on with me in Second Chance this year. Then I read The Thrashers by Julie Soto, or listened to it, and this is her YA thriller debut. I gave it 5 stars. So Julie gets 2 5 stars from me, and I can't wait to read Forget Me Not and Rose in Chains. Then I read Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. This was a poetry book. I didn't give it a rating because I feel like poetry I usually don't like to give a rating to either. I thought it was really great writing, but I just couldn't relate to any of the messages really in it, so I think that was my own fault. And that's why you shouldn't read poetry. In my opinion. Read it if you want. Then I read Cat and Gamer Volume 4 by Mataru Nadatani. Gave it a 4 star. Continuation of that cute series. This was kind of my slump I was in this last week, so I just read a lot of manga. Then I read Witch Hat Atelier Volume 4 and 5 by Komome Shirahama. Again, as I talked about it before, I gave Volume 4 a 4 star and Volume 5 a 5 star. And then my most recent book I've read was Forever and Always by Helena Greer. This was another second chance contemporary romance. I gave it a 4 star. So I've read 3 this year, which is insane. And this also has a lot of LGBTQ plus themes, interconnected standalone series. I really enjoyed it, although I didn't get a 5 stars because the characters were really irritating. So, those are all the books that I have read so far this year, and I will be back soon after I give my mouth a break to talk about my top 3 books of the year so far.